Tear it down. That rat hole is a stain on the neighborhood map. That's what the HOA president screamed over the bulldozers roaring outside my window at 5 in the morning, just as the demolition crew rolled in like a military raid. I stood there stunned, barefoot in the cold Montana dirt, watching the home my ancestors built get chewed apart one wall at a time, all because of a crime so ridiculous it would make your head spin, painting the place the wrong shade of green. What nobody on that shiny HOA board realized, though, was that if you want to pump water for 6,000 sheep every single day, you have to run your entire operation through one very stubborn piece of land. My land. And I was holding on to something they could never buy with money or threats. So buckle up, because you're about to see what happens when the folks doing the stomping forget that the thing they're stomping on just might be the pipeline under their own feet. I'll tell you right now, this story isn't for the faint of heart. It's the kind of tale that'll have you cheering in your seat or slamming your fist on the table, depending on how much you like seeing the little guy punch back. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning if you call 3 bulldozers outside your house ordinary. My daughter Emma was already up, her face pressed to the window, eyes wide with that weird kid fascination for destruction. "Daddy, why are there trucks eating our house?" I didn't have an answer that made sense, not for an 8-year-old, or for me, to be honest. Guys in hard hats moved with robotic precision, unloading gear, putting up barriers, acting like they owned the place. Which, according to the paperwork, shoved at me by a woman in a white pantsuit they basically did. Victoria Ashford. Yeah, the living stereotype of an HOA president stepped out of her black Mercedes, like royalty, perfect blonde hair, sunglasses at dawn, and that razor-sharp smile. She handed me a fat stack of papers, still warm from the printer, stamped by the mayor himself. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm afraid your property's been designated for immediate demolition under emergency community beautification protocols." The ink was barely dry. My hands shook, but my voice didn't as I pulled out my phone, showing her the permit for my paint job all filed and approved. She smiled wider, never a good sign, and told me, "There's been a revision as of midnight. Your shade of forest green is now classified as offensive chartreuse. Immediate remediation is required." You ever have someone move the finish line right as you're about to cross it? That's what it felt like. Emma tugged my sleeve, voice trembling. "Are we losing our house?" I tried to keep it together, kneeling down, telling her, sometimes grown-ups make rules that make no sense, but we'd figure it out. Over her shoulder, our neighbor Rusty McCormick appeared 70-something, crusty and sharp as a tack. Rusty had been my granddad's best friend and a journalist back when that meant something. "Jazz, this ain't right," he called, his voice full of the kind of authority only old reporters get. "That water main runs through your land, boy. They need you more than they realize." And right then, the puzzle pieces started snapping together. Victoria's sheep ranch. Her real moneymaker ran on water from that very pipeline, a setup that dated back to an easement my granddad signed in the 70s. No pipeline, no sheep, no empire. And I had control. I caught a flicker of panic in Victoria's eyes when Rusty mentioned the water, but she covered fast all legal jargon and fake confidence. "All water rights documentation has been properly transferred," she said. But the demolition crew was careful, smashing everything but the pipeline markers. They knew exactly what they couldn't touch. As I stood in my pajamas watching my history get bulldozed, I realized 3 things. First, my daughter deserved to see her dad fight back. Second, Rusty had a nose for buried secrets. And third, I controlled the thing Victoria needed most. They thought I'd just roll over like all the families she'd steamrolled before. They didn't know me at all. The second the dust settled, Rusty and I were huddled in his kitchen plotting. His basement was a time capsule, boxes of my family's papers, including the original 50-year water rights agreement. Turns out the deal had a killer clause: any unauthorized use or construction on the easement, and I could terminate it with 30 days' notice. And just last year, Victoria had installed an illegal secondary pipeline right under my old porch. She'd violated the agreement so many times it was almost funny. Suddenly there was a knock, a nervous young lawyer named Brad Kellerman from the Legal Aid Society. He'd been tracking HOA overreach cases and was giddy over the evidence we had. Not only had Victoria bulldozed me, she'd destroyed 15 other families the same way, buying up their land cheap through shell companies, building her real estate empire on fake emergencies and vanishing paperwork. But the key to her kingdom was still running through my land. That's when Emma, quietly coloring, nearby, piped up. Mrs. Victoria said on the phone, she needs to get rid of the troublemaker before he figures out the water thing. Out of the mouths of babes, right? Rusty's eyes lit up. We had her on conspiracy, fraud, and every violation in the book. But more than that, we had her by the water valve. Of course, Victoria struck back. My bank account was frozen for suspicious activity. Emma's school wanted an urgent conference about her suddenly being a problem child. First, I'd heard of it, and a $2 million lawsuit landed on my doorstep for defamation and emotional distress. I just laughed. She was desperate, and desperation makes people sloppy. Let her come, I told Brad and Rusty, feeling that old fighting spirit flare up. She forgot the one rule you never break: never step on the guy who controls your water. So we went to war. Rusty set up his old journalistic gear. Brad filed official complaints everywhere he could. And Emma, God love her, suggested we just tell people online that Victoria was being mean to sheep. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. We launched a live stream, showed the evidence, and within hours, stories from other victims poured in: gardens bulldozed, sheds demolished, flags removed, lives upended. The hashtag #Sheepgate trended. Local and even state news picked it up. For every troll or bot Victoria sent to smear me, 10 more neighbors stood up to tell their story. But she wasn't done. She hired private security to intimidate my daughter at her soccer game. Said bad things happen to little girls who don't listen. That was the last straw. I filed a police report, and the local cops admitted they'd had their eye on Victoria for a while. Threatening a child? That's not HOA business, that's straight up criminal. Right as things were spiraling, Emma's school project, her tablet left. Recording by accident caught Victoria on a phone call, plotting to ruin Brad's reputation and take me down. We had her clear as day. Brad pushed for action, but I hesitated because to win, I'd have to shut off the water. That meant thousands of sheep would suffer, and they were innocent. So we found another way. Instead of cutting her off, we used the contract violations as leverage. Brad filed formal complaints with animal welfare, the agriculture department, every agency we could find. Victoria's operation was exposed for the horror show. It was overcrowded, cruel, and illegal on multiple fronts. Victoria tried to fight back with everything she had, got a restraining order, tried to sick the state on me for environmental contamination, but the harder she fought, the worse it got. She'd built her backup water system on my land too and didn't even realize it. Brad's legal filings brought the whole thing crashing down. The state ordered her to cut her sheep operation by 60% or face criminal charges. The investors pulled out of her resort deal. The HOA board removed her in disgrace. My live stream showed it all, and the whole country tuned in to watch a tyrant fall. In the end, the sheep were set free, literally. Fences went down, woolly stampedes took over the suburbs, and Victoria was caught on camera trying to herd sheep with a leaf blower covered in mud and sheep droppings. Talk about poetic justice. She called me broken, pleading to save the animals. I'd already routed the water to the nature preserve, and animal control was there to help. For the first time, she sounded like a human, not a villain. 3 days after her downfall, Emma found a hidden journal under the ruins of our old house. Victoria's childhood diary, written when she was 12, full of stories about how her own family was destroyed by the HOA. She'd started out wanting to protect people, but became the monster she hated. We met in the nature preserve. She broke down admitting what she'd done, and I offered her a second chance, managed the new animal sanctuary on her old land unpaid, helping the very creatures she once exploited. 6 months later, the town had changed. Emma and Victoria bottle-fed lambs together. The HOA was rebuilt for transparency. Brad became mayor, and families got their homes back. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about giving even the worst people a shot at redemption and giving kids like Emma a future where second chances are real. So, have you ever been in a situation where showing mercy seemed impossible but turned out to be what everyone needed? Or maybe you've seen someone's second chance change everything. Drop your story in the comments, because what you share might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this hit home, give it a like, share it around, and keep believing in the power of second chances.